self. My dad said, hey, listen, if you don't want to have winters that last about a third, sometimes half the year, and the economy wasn't exactly ideal, he said, what's holding you back? So I took that to heart, and I ended up jumping down to the Carolinas and working at 2 different private offices, kind of splitting time between the two, which was a great experience to see what I liked, what I didn't like, kind of take notes and gain experience and exposure to how different practices operate. And then I had the opportunity eventually to grab a LensCrafter sublease, and that's where I'm at today. I started out with one and now have 4 locations, and have had the ability to build out and scale that.
Hello and welcome to the Crystal Podcast on iCode Media. Today I had a great conversation with my friend, Dr. Ryan Corte. We discussed his practices. We discussed Ryan Reflects, his new podcast, as well as his rebranding. And we talked a lot about private practice and corporate leaseholders and the differences and the similarities between the two. It was a great conversation. Please enjoy it. As always, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, share it with your friends, and support those who support us. All right. The most common questions I get include, what ophthalmological codes or evaluation and management codes should I use? What ICD-10 codes do I need to bill with this CPT code? What CPT codes can be billed together and what can't? And my favorite, how do I manage a patient who has diabetes who comes in for a quote-unquote routine eye exam? These questions really highlight the confusion and uncertainty that serves as a daunting hurdle for providers, makes it more challenging for them to care for their patients and provide those patients with the best opportunity for a lifetime of ocular health and clear vision. That's why we built iCode Education for this specific purpose. Our mission is to provide optometrists with resources to help you understand disease states, revenue cycles, and billing and coding so that you can put that on autopilot and truly care for your patients. Check out iCodeEducation.com. That's EYECODE education.com. We've developed a premier billing and coding bundle that includes all of our billing and coding resources in one place. We also have a 10% discount code just for listeners of this podcast. Enter the coupon code EYECODEMEDIA22 at checkout. We'd love to work with you. Check out iCodeEducation.com. Hello, dedicated optometrists. Are you looking for a way to support your patient's vision and overall eye health? Let me introduce you to Vision Edge Pro, a visual performance supplement that stands out in our profession. Vision Edge Pro contains a balanced blend of mesozeaxanthine, lutein, and zeaxanthine in a 10-10-2 ratio. This combination has been scientifically shown to increase macular pigment density, which enhances visual performance, including contrast sensitivity and vision in glare situations. Additionally, Vision Edge Pro provides 300 milligrams of DHA and EPA, fulfilling the daily requirements for omega-3s as recognized by the leading health organizations. This ensures your patients receive the essential nutrients their eyes need for optimal health. Whether it's for everyday screen use, night driving, or enjoying the outdoors, Vision Edge Pro supports your patients in seeing their best. Recommend Vision Edge Pro for your patients today and help them achieve clearer, healthier vision. Contact your local Macu Health representative for more details. Vision Edge Pro, because your patients deserve the best in eye health. Go to macuhealth.com and use the coupon code podcast2024 at checkout for special discounts. I want to kind of harken back to kind of the last time that you and I really spent a lot of time discussing anything was probably when you were a student. That was a long time ago. And obviously, like when you were a student, I knew that at some point you would be doing big things and you had a lot of, potential to grow. And it seems like you've done that. From what I can gather. So tell me about the last, I guess it's probably been 15 years? 15 years of, yeah. I mean, we see each other passing, but tell me about what's been going on in your life. What's exciting to you?
Sure. No, absolutely. I mean, goodness, over that time frame. So I was a student at Ohio State and part of AOSA. I think both you and I had sat on the executive council and board for AOSA, so that was a cool experience. And I think that's where we kind of had some synergies and cross paths. And after graduation, did a residency at the Illinois College of Optometry in primary care and ocular disease. And I always had my heart set on moving south. I'm born and raised in the Midwest, actually from Michigan. And I remember during residency, I was kind of leaning into, okay, what am I going to do after in regard to where am I going to practice? And I was talking with my dad. And at the time I was single. I didn't have anything tying me to Metro Detroit, where I grew up, outside of family. I had some of my family there, not all, and just took a leap of faith on a prayer and decided to kind of proceed south. My dad said, "Hey, listen, if you don't want to have winters that last about a third, sometimes half the year, and the economy wasn't exactly ideal," he said, "What's holding you back?" So I took that to heart, and I ended up jumping down to the Carolinas and working at 2 different private offices, kind of splitting time between the 2, which was a great experience to see what I liked, what I didn't like, kind of take notes and gain experience and exposure to how different practices operate. Because as you as I both know, practices operate very differently across our profession. And then I had the opportunity eventually to grab a LensCrafter sublease, and that's where I'm at today. I started out with 1 and now have 4 locations, and have had the ability to build out and scale that. Yes, it's a different business model than just your traditional private practice, but not really. In regard to, if you take the optical side of the equation out and some lease criteria, a ton of synergies. And so, yeah, fast forward to right now, today, I live in Asheville. And anybody who's listening, I'm recruiting. So if you want to practice in Asheville, let me know. But yeah, things are going really, really well. Running a 4-location practice that just rebranded to Reflect Vision Care as of October of 2025. And so some synergies with my podcast, Ryan Reflects, and excited about that. Yeah.
Do you focus on, so in your podcast, is it mainly patient facing? Do you keep it doctor facing? What's your approach there?
Doctor facing. Really, it's all about sharing stories. Bringing to light, kind of like interview format that you have here, bringing to light the good, even the bad, and just learning through our experience and just getting together and collaborating with other optometrists and eye care professionals. And then I also have some solo podcasts where I'll dive into topics that have been requested. So I actually just recorded one earlier this week, and it's the process of rebranding. And it's kind of funny. You start and you launch your own practice and you pick a brand and you do some homework, but maybe you don't really know what you don't know. You don't know what that should look like big picture wise. But when you rebrand, you have a lot of intentionality behind it because you've traditionally spent a lot of time, 5, 10, 15 years building up your practice and your main objectives, your vision, all of that. And so, yeah.
Well, tell me. Well, I know that people can jump over and listen to your podcast to hear your thoughts on rebranding. But we just did the same thing. We're going to move in a week into our new building. Probably by the time this comes out, we will have moved.
Nice.
And with that, we kind of rebranded. We didn't have. So I took over my parents' practice, and I practiced with my dad for about 10 years as partners. We practiced together for about 14 years, and we were partners for about 10 of those years. And then when he decided to retire, I bought him out, and they had the same thing. Like, we just kind of kept the same logo that they had from 1989, which was like a family with exclusively eye care underneath, and I didn't change the name, but we did kind of modernize the brand. And so it was a nice time to do that. My suspicion is we kind of redid our website, did some other things, kind of invested in the brand a little bit more. But my guess is you probably were a lot more intentional than I was. I think people think I'm pretty intentional with everything, but there's certain things I'm just not. So it's like, let's just try this, see how it goes. And I'm a much more like, let me break something first, and then I'll fix it if I need to, as opposed to like thinking through it specifically. So what should have I thought of with rebranding that I should have actually taken a stepwise approach to rethink?
Well, the fact that you didn't change the name is huge, right? Because you have that known goodwill in the community, but also on the internet. And so if you did change the name, you would have to do all your due diligence of, is that name available? Can I get the social handles, the internet website, the presence? Also, I think you've seen this, and I've seen this across the country. There could be a Family Vision Care Plus in North Carolina, but also in Texas and Michigan.
One
and so
in Asheville and one in Charlotte.
Bingo.
Right? Yeah.
So you could have it within the same state. You could have it within other states. And I have a friend who she uses the word elite in her practice, and a lot of people like the word elite. And so they'll get calls sometimes about, hey, I'm calling to check out my contact lens or glasses, and that patient isn't even calling the right state. And so that is really huge. For me, it was more so trying to find something that I felt really strongly about and that I could get my team behind and also the community behind. And I looked at regional things. A lot of the regional stuff was taken. I looked at state-related stuff. A lot of that's taken. And I looked at just general terms like elite or advanced, and all of those are taken. And so really being intentional with my podcast, Ryan Reflects, and having some synergies, I used AI to try to break down variations of what the practice could be, and then started really digging into the search queues and taking it from there. But because you didn't do that, right? Because you didn't change that, really, I think that the world is your oyster in regard to what did you want the new, almost like a facelift, right? Almost like a refresh to look like. And so I think you didn't have to do as much due diligence on that front, and hopefully you're very satisfied with the results. Did you hire somebody to help rebrand, or did?
So honestly, I did. We wound up hiring a designer, but again, like to your point, I guess I didn't have to do all that other stuff because we kept the same name. But I used AI. And it was amazing. It took me 5 iterations to get the basic framework. And I kept thinking, my sister's a graphic designer. And I know I would have annoyed the heck out of her if I would have just gone back and forth with the design. Like she would have given me this, and I'd be like, yeah, Alex, change this, or can we make this better, or do this? And I know within like 5 iterations, she's great. I love my sister, and she is amazing. She's an amazing person just in general. But like I would have annoyed the heck out of her, and I would have just started, I would have probably just been like, okay, this is fine, And so I actually have the AI prompts that I gave it. I started with a big prompt. Masood and Nafi, don't you?
Yes.
You met Masood?
Oh, yeah.
And so Masood and I have been on tour. It's called the Gateway Tour for Vision Source, doing AI talks. And so before we even developed that, I had already kind of understood prompting pretty well and how to get something that you want to out of AI. And so I started with the prompt, and then I said, here's our existing logo. Here's kind of what my vision is. I need to modernize it. I need to update it. And, it gave me 1, and I was like, it's all right. And they gave me 2, and I said, well, change this, make it do this, try more modern. And like within literally 5 iterations, I was like, whoa, that's amazing. And so then I sent that to my sister, and I was like, can you vectorize this? Can you make it, and make it more stylistic, do a few things? And she loved it. She was like, my wife loved it. And so like, I guess that's probably a testament to AI, is like if you have a good ability to prompt, right? And then you have a good ability to have some vision about what you want, and then you can articulate well what you like about something and what you don't like about something. It was, So anyway, it turned out great. So yeah, we're really excited about it. We're happy with it. And that's the process. I did talk about what our practice was, right? I told it what our practice was, what our values were. So I wanted it to reflect some of that also. I don't know. What did you do with AI? How did you do that?
Mine was a lot less on the visual components of putting together the look and the feel, and more so of the wordsmithing of what are we actually going to rebrand into, and then help me build out based off of core ideology, values, mission, what we do, more of the framework of the brand. And then I collaborated with somebody who helped me create the Ryan Reflects brand, as well as the prior name Northlake guy. And so I've known this guy for a while, and he's fantastic. And so I gave him all of that, and he gave me 3 very distinctly different iterations, and then we kind of dialed it in. But I like how you utilized AI, because you can do that. You wake up in the middle of the night and you can't sleep. You could start playing with this and get 90% of the work done, and then send it over to the professional to hammer out that last 10% and get it so you can utilize, like you said, the different formats. I love that. And so, yeah, I think it's a continuous combination too, because as I go throughout the digital footprint that we had, redirecting things, updating listings, updating all of that. Fortunately, it's been, knock on wood, very smooth. I did a lot of the homework on the front end. The concept and idea, I knew about it for about 9 months and waited for the appropriate time, which I wanted to make sure it was not our busiest season. So not the beginning or end of the year, not back to school. The fall tends to be, a little bit slower at times. I'd say less chaotic, and so that's why we picked that time frame. But AI helped me structure all of that. And it's funny you mentioned Masood. Masood is a classmate of mine. He was a year behind
Oh,
me
he
and
is.
good buddy of mine. Yeah, I
That's
love Masood.
hilarious.
He's always thinking outside the box. So he's super intentional with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I'll see him. I'll see him tonight. We'll be in San Antonio together, and I'll hang out with him tomorrow a bit before I fly back. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know him at all. First time I met him was in Denver at the Vision Source Exchange this year in April, and yeah, I mean, great dude. I mean, it's been fun to get to know him, and I think that speaks a lot to the profession. There's a lot of good people in the profession. My belief about our profession is that I know there's probably jerks and there's people who will, but by and large, like optometry is a good group of people. They're trustworthy. They're, yeah, I mean, and that's been my experience with Masood as well. So it's been awesome to get to know him. So let me ask you, I want to dive a little bit into your experience with, because I mean, one area that's a blind spot for me is like a lens crafter's practice, right? So let me give you a little bit of background. For a year and a half before I started helping doctors and students prepare for their board examinations, after I guess it was about 9 months, I did some fill-in work at a lens crafter's on Saturdays, and so I guess I'll try to unpack this because I'm just interested in. All right, so you practice in a private practice, and then you had opportunities for a couple of lease hold agreements. And I've talked to Joe about this, Joe Deloche, and he'll be like, "Listen, man, like there are some real deal ODs in lens crafters and Walmarts, and it just depends on how you want to practice." And so, he has talked about this, but in my little microcosm of what I experienced was that's not how the doctor that I was filling in for. That's not how they cultivated their practice. It was a refractive practice, and I was there to basically check the box of like, hey, you got to be open 6 days a week. So here's some, and it was good for me because I had negotiated enough that I was like, listen, just fill me up. I'll take any single patient because I was bonused on value on volume. But like one of the things that I noticed was like if a patient needed other stuff outside, because I think it was the way they had built the practice, is like they needed anything else that was not refractive care. One, they didn't want it because they didn't expect it when they came in. And two, if I had to refer them out, I mean, 50 to 70% of the time, I'd get a letter back from where I sent them out and the patient didn't even show up, or didn't even make the appointment. And I just don't ever see that in my practice. So give me your thoughts about all that.
Yeah, no, I think it is 100% what you make of it, right? So you absolutely could take any sublease, whether it's an Essilor-Luxottica based one or, Walmart or iMar Express. There's a bunch of them out there. And you could make it a very much so primary vision care practice. All you do is refract and refer. I could also say that I've been in a number of private offices that's how they operate as well.
They do the same
and so,
thing. Yeah.
I think it is what you make of it. And it's funny, we're recording this now. I'm leaving on Saturday for a week to go to the All Docs National Conference, which is of lens crafters sublease holders. And a number of these individuals have 4 or more locations. So the ability for you to operate as a high level, not only practice, but business and scale it and practice to a high level is there and in partnership with lens crafters. So I would say the biggest differences are you do sign an agreement with a corporation. But if you look at a lot of private offices, the vast majority of them have some skin in the game and they're optical with a number of these organizations, right? Whether they're partnering with VSP or whether they're partnering with Essilor-Luxottica or even if they're fully private and they only take very boutique, optical frames and they use a very small lab, you still have to have skin in the game in some kind of capacity with another corporate partner. So this one is partnering with a bigger one. And so with that comes a lease that is a number of pages long and it has criteria of hours of operation and rent. And, there are different variations of the sublease. So you could sign a lens crafter sublease in a state that is a one-door state, and lens crafters may control the staff, right? They may hire the staff, fire the staff, and you provide patient care. And there's an arrangement where You still are able to have autonomy in regards to how you practice, but less control. And then there are states like North Carolina, it's a two-door state where I hire and fire my staff. I have the ability to provide care, not only vision, but medical. And I'd say the vast majority of practices have the ability to have medical components built in. It's how much do you want to lean in?
Yeah.
So we have,
maybe if the state makes it harder for you to,
bingo,
to do that. Yeah. Maybe
and
not necessarily the state, but just the culture of the state,
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, for example, doing my residency on the south side of Chicago, all of those lens crafters are employed locations. So they have employed locations where you physically work for EssilorLuxottica.
Well, how do they make the decision on what location is going to be an employed location and what location is going to be a leaseholder and what location might be virtual? Are they there because they're probably using some virtual care as well, telehealth?
Yeah, all of them are. I think all of them are. I think it all comes down to supply and demand and the red tape of state laws.
CooperVision and the AOA have joined forces in a groundbreaking initiative to transform how optometrists treat children with myopia. The Myopia Collective aims to unite our profession and its allies to challenge the status quo and elevate the standard of care for children with myopia. Everyone is invited to become a member of the collective. By joining, you pledge to act in slowing childhood myopia progression. Membership includes regular updates and information about the collective's efforts, access to educational opportunities and resources, and insights from the ambassador optometrists who advocate for community policy and changes supporting the collective's mission. Click the link in the show notes to join the collective today. If you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed and start running a safer, more profitable practice, here's the next step. First, book a strategy call with us, Practice Performance Partners. We'll uncover the biggest risks and opportunities in your practice. Then, choose the package that fits your goals. From there, we'll get you launched with confidence, with clear systems, with expert support, and with peace of mind, knowing your practice is protected and set up to grow. Don't wait until something goes wrong. Book your strategy call with us, Practice Performance Partners, today.
If you have the ability to sign on with a good partner, somebody, a good friend of mine, Tori Kassam, I just put two people together. Tori Carlson and Nahid Kassam, two of the OG lens crafter sublease holders that have been doing it for a while and doing it very well. One in North Carolina, one in Tennessee. They have multi-locations and 7 or 8 each. They operate at an extremely high level. They practice medical, OCT, visual field. You have ret eval, so you're doing ERGs, you're doing ocular surface treatment and management. So they have IPL. They have all of this stuff. They sell contacts. The only thing they don't do is sell the retail side of glasses, so your frames and lenses. And we know that that's where a large portion of revenue can be driven into a private office, but I believe
also a large cost of goods when you think about
large cost of goods.
Cost of goods
Yep.
plus the employee cost.
Yep. So they've been two wonderful mentors of mine, and there are a number of them in this space, in this group, where you kind of have a perfect example of what good looks like and what to aspire to, but it does take time. And so my personal experience has been, I have embraced it. I have had the ability to go from 1 to 4 locations. I had a business partner. I'm not only a solo owner, so I've had the ability to see what that looks like. And you're right. Finding 7 days a week of coverage can be challenging. And so making sure that you get the right people on your team and then incentivizing people to maybe pick up days that are less desirable or more challenging. So weekend days or even weekends around holidays, that comes with its own inherent challenges. But we also have the ability to, when you operate at this level, provide benefits, provide 401k options. There is that opportunity with scale. And you're also able to build out a brand and a patient experience that, as you referenced, the location that you filled in, well, they were strictly vision care focused. But if you come in with a different vision and main objective, and you're taking care of the patient's eye health and vision care needs, you're not going to get any pushback from your corporate retail partner. And if you do, I advise you to sit down and have a conversation so that you can align.
I think the interesting part to me is like we're seeing in, I don't know if this exists in corporate leaseholders like yourself, but like if you wanted to go sell, right? Like, do you have an asset to sell?
You do. Yep, there's
Yeah.
a value proposition, and I would say that you can't be desperate, right? Because if you're somebody who's like at the very end or you don't plan it out intentionally, Well, lens crafters or whatever corporation you partner with wants to make sure that there's a transition, that they have somebody that comes in that would meet the criteria to take over if you built a really robust business and meet the criteria to step in. And so there's a value proposition, there's an equation. And actually I have purchased one out of the 4 locations I did purchase. The other 3...
Oh, go ahead.
No, the other 3 were just doctors. One of them was retiring, walking away, didn't... great doc. I don't think from a business perspective ever thought that that was something he would try to do. And the other 2 were doctors who actually transitioned their books out of lens crafters into a private office. And lens crafters recruited me 2 hours away and said, hey, do you want to step into these locations and sign the lease and move forward? And that was a big pivotal time in my life where my wife was like, well, if you go, if we're going to expand this business, then we're moving. Because at the time, as I referenced, I had a partner in Charlotte to manage operations there. So it really depends. But there was a formula and equation to purchase one of the locations, and it was very fresh. The doctor had only had it for a little while. She had a number of locations and was kind of just looking to offload it based off of the strains of management.
It's really interesting because I guess that I had never pondered this before until our conversation, but so obviously like private equity is still a big conversation that kind of ebbs and flows. I think it's on the uprise again in terms of conversations within private practices about an exit plan, but I never hear about that as an exit plan for corporate leaseholders, right? And so like, I'm going to probably, I don't think I'll ever have to eat my words. The reason I say these words is so I never have to eat them, because I think private equity is super seductive. But I will never sell to private equity ever, because I think it's not good for my community. I just won't do it. And part of the reason I say that is because I know that if money is dangled in front of my face, and if it's enough money, then I would be stupid not to take it, but I can say that now because it prevents me from, like, it's my guard, right? It's a barrier. And I live my life in a lot of ways where it's like, if I don't want to do this thing, if the line is over there, I'm going to make sure that I'm keeping the line right here. Right. And the ultimate reason I say that is because I don't see any way that it's good for the community. Maybe it's good for 5 years. Maybe it's good for 10 years. But at some point, that flip will impact the community. And my parents built the practice so they could serve our community. Did we have a good quality of life growing up? Sure. I had a way harder quality of life than my kids have. And so has it helped my family continue to build wealth? Absolutely. Have I been able to start with something that was way bigger than what my dad started? Absolutely. But more importantly, like we're a huge asset to our community now, where if I sell my practice, it's done. Like at some point, my asset to the community is done. And I had a patient call me at 4:50 this morning, and I was working out, and he had a recurrent erosion, and he texted me, "Hey doc, can you come in and see me? I'm not in clinic on Thursdays or Fridays, but I am on call all the time because I have a responsibility, right?" And I also have a new associate who has seen me do debridement with a Procera, right? He's seen me debride an entire epithelium and then put a Procera on, but he's never done it. So he's in there today with my other associate. So I text the guy back and say, "Listen, I'm halfway in the middle of my run. I'll get back. I'll see you at 7." And then I text the new associate, "Hey, meet me there. It's time for you to do it. I'll watch you." So like, and the reason I do that is because I have a responsibility to translate that knowledge, that patient care, and I show him, my new associate, that like, hey, this is what it means to be in the community, right? And I guess I say all that to say that's not going to happen with PE. It's just not. It's just not. So there are similarities though, because to your point, if you decided to leave and start your own practice, they're going to try to come and backfill you, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
But I guess let me ask the first question is, does PE even exist? Like that's not even a conversation within your group of peers. Is that correct?
No, and I think the reason being is that there isn't a brick and mortar structure, optical, all of those things to purchase and acquire. I mean, yes, we could sell records. Absolutely. Put in a notice and dissolve the partnership. And here you go. Here's the records. Those records are, a lot of times that sales information is already transitioned over if they did purchase, at whatever optical retail you're partnering with, and in my case, LensCrafters, and they're going to go after that patient base to try to bring them back in. And so I'm not sure if it's less enticing. I do know it's less enticing for private equity, but I have been reached out to, on the regular about, hey, would you like to sell your practice? And then I give them a little more information. I say, I don't believe this is, A, I'm not ever at that position, for the foreseeable future. But B, I don't believe it's what they're looking for. And so, but I do think for newer graduate docs, or even docs that are established 5-10 years out, extremely viable way to practice and have the ability to, if you see yourself growing your practice from one to multiple locations, or even just have one thriving office with a number of doctors there, it can be really, really a profitable way, but it can be a rewarding way when you take care of patients. And you just referenced something that this probably happens to you on Saturday and Sundays, right? Well, guess what? We're open on Saturdays and Sundays. And so if I get that call, I will notify who's ever working at particular location, say, hey, this person's coming in. This is what's happening. I kind of view us as like a mini eye hospital without the surgery. We triage foreign bodies and red eyes and abrasions all day long on the weekend, to the point where I even have local colleagues referring any calls that come in. Maybe if they don't have the ability to get to the office, they send them to us. And it happens all the time. And it's rewarding to be there for people at the time when they need to be served.
Yeah, amen. I mean, yeah, I guess it's just, it's something that, I'd never really pondered, but and I don't, again, like, this is my position. I always say, I don't blame people for selling to private equity. I don't blame them. My thought is, if I can figure out a way to transition the practice to either of my two associates, my son's talking about, optometry school. He's just a senior in high school, so who knows what will happen. But, I'm 44 years old. It's not gonna happen tomorrow, and I don't want to wake up in 15 years being like, I'm ready to go. Who wants to buy my office? Like that, the office right now is too expensive for an individual to buy. It's just too expensive. So then you start getting into these creative ways. But I don't know if I hold out if I continue to speak that, then I'm raising the stakes for if I did sell. Well, Chris, you said you'd never sell. What's going on? Like, that's one of the reasons it's a protection measure, right? For me, because I know it can be seductive. But, I guess, how do you transition? How do you look at transitioning your practice, right? Because you're just a few years younger than me. You're 40, 41?
I'm 39, turn 40 next summer.
All right. So 39. Yeah, how do you look at like the next level? Are you thinking about it yet? Are you you said you're not anytime soon. Do you have a date in mind that you want to be able to start that process?
I really don't, and here's why. First and foremost, I commend you for putting that out there and doing so on the regular. And you're the kind of guy that I know is going to continue to not only, you're going to walk away from this profession giving back more than it ever gave you and then some. And reciprocal, yeah, of course, reciprocal feelings and emotions are on that, I'm sure that you have based on the family nature of your business. But there's a legacy component to that. And as you referenced, you don't want to walk away from your community feeling like you put them in a position of a deficit, right? And really just stripping away what you had built there. So I respect and I commend you for that. That being said, I don't think about that at the current moment because I feel like I'm in the trenches of continuing to get the business up to where I feel like it needs to be from a total eye health and vision care operation. I'm talking all the red tape of healthcare, compliance. I'm talking, all the things that would make it a good place to live and be and work for doctors, for the support team. Of course, in the back of my mind, I know that as I continue to build that out, I will have to put together a strategy to then figure out, do I sell to one individual, all 4 locations? Do I sell them out individually? Do I notify LensCrafters if it's just a location that is not sustainable long-term and try to find a way for an exit strategy there? Those are all things that I'll evaluate, and I'll continue to lean on that All Docs group and my peers in the group to figure out the best way to do so.
How many people are in that group?
It's a couple hundred, I would say. So not a ton, but yeah. And it also, there's different subsets within. So there's All Docs that serves essentially anybody who has a LensCrafters sublease. And then there's AllDocs sublease, which is LensCrafters, Target, and Pearl Vision. And you can be, part of that. So that sublease space is a bigger group. And, there's different abilities based off contractual obligations. Like I can sell contacts at my office, and no, I know the Targets can't, and I know a lot of subleases can't. And so there's different rights and different contractual agreements that you can have in place depending on what structure your lease is.
Let me ask you about you talk about, I hear I'm hearing words that are similar in nature. I think you say, all eye health and vision care, sort of a mantra that you have. I can tell. Maybe it's a mantra, maybe it's part of your vision statement, but your goal seems like you're trying to get to this pinnacle of where you think those 4 practices can go. And you mentioned compliance in your vision, right? Like where are you trying to grow these practices and take that patient care where you'll say, I've done it? I know that you're not probably the type of guy that's going to stop at some point, but like when you're like, okay, what's my aspiration now to get it to the level of what you think, what your expectation is for those 4 practices?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm going to give a shout out to you and your team at PPP for having a viable solution from a compliance and then just billing and coding educational structure in play. I think that as optometrists, we're really good clinicians. I think from not only a business ownership, we're pretty good at that too. What we're not great at, and I don't think healthcare in general is staying up to date with all of the fast moving components of compliance and the red tape of healthcare. And so for me personally, my biggest thing is making sure that we are practicing at the highest level, but also making sure we're doing so the right way from a legal and compliant component. I feel like our patient care has always been very, very strong, second to none in the community in regard to any private office or any sublease office or even anybody who just practices at a high level and is employed by a major corporation. But where I felt like there's room for growth and development is getting all of those pieces in play, all that paperwork, all the red tape, the office manual, we have a doctor manual, a handbook, contracts with all of our doctors, contracts with some of our support team members, all of those things built out. Well, man, it's a lot of work, but it's also really critically important to operate for a sustainable long period of time and to protect your biggest asset, right? Which is how you practice and how you serve the community.
Yeah. So do you have the mind for I don't. So like Peter and Joe, they are like, so my mind, it's interesting. My mind, like I really love the details of billing. I really love the details of clinical practice guidelines, preferred practice patterns. How do we do all that in a comprehensive practice? But like employee manuals, I mean, my mind just goes numb with that stuff. Like we've updated some of ours and I'm just like, I don't know, just make it work, and that's why it's great to have Peter and Joe on the team to kind of help me think through that as well. Cause I'm a PP user, just PPP user, just like I am an owner of that company. And, but does your mind, some people just have the mind for it. Like they like to think about HR and they like to think about employee manuals and processes within that. Is that good? Are you having fun with like customizing it for you, or you're like, I just got to get this done?
Yeah, I do enjoy knowing and understanding how we can have safeguards in place because, hey, we serve the public, we also employ the public. And so these if-then scenarios, if you hear a story that happens to, let's just say somebody outside of optometry and HR, or even within optometry and HR, don't for a second think that it could not happen to your practice of 1 doctor, 3 employees. Just don't for a second, because it very much so could. We've all heard these terrible stories. And so I'm all about safeguards. I'm all about making sure we put in the right components in play to protect the practice, to protect the entity, to protect each other. And so I feel good as I go through knowing that we are crossing our T's and dotting our I's. I'm very much so a detail-oriented person when it comes to that stuff. And I'm getting better and better with the billing and coding side. So I think you and I kind of have maybe somewhat of a reverse role. I have a number of team members that help and assist me with that. But more so, submitting and getting a denied claim and then troubleshooting that. And then, if there's an overpayment, going through like the appropriate steps and processes. those are things that I'm getting better and better at. But I feel like the administrative side is something that I've always probably been a little bit more in touch with, because that's always been my role of, people management in the practice.
So then how much time are you spending managing people, and how much time are you spending managing patients?
Well, 7 days a week, 28 doctor days a week we got to cover. And so if I don't have somebody who is practicing, then I'm in at one of the 4 offices. And so it does vary. Right now, my schedule is a couple days a week, and then on average a few weekends a month, but really more weekends a month than not at the current structure of the business. But, there was a transition in ownership. I was a partner, now I'm a solo owner. So just getting all those pieces aligned has taken some time, but seen a lot of growth and development on that. And as I continue to get the right people on the bus, the right people on the team, then I'm going to continue to double and triple down on making sure that all of our business structure aligns with what I believe it needs to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, then let me I'm going to switch gears a little bit and give you a little bit of time to talk about Ryan Reflects. So what was you said you have conversations with people, then you do some monologues as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're a busy guy. Why do you want to do it?
Yeah, just like you, I feel like there's something inside me that wants to continue to put good, positive information out to the profession, to our colleagues, to learn from each other, to share the good, bad, and the ugly, and continue to build up not only the present state of the profession, but the future of the profession. I think that we have a lot of work to do in regard to recruiting and retaining the right people to join optometry. So my hope is even pre-optometry and optometry students are jumping in and listening to some of these stories. Because a lot of times I'll have somebody like yourself on and I'll say, okay, let's take a step back. I want to hear about why you got into optometry. And yours would probably be something along the lines of, hey, family business, was around it a lot, and kind of took off from there. But everybody's pathway to this profession is unique. There are a lot of people that wanted to go to medicine or wanted to go into a certain subset of medicine and found and discovered optometry and realized, wow, this is a really viable way to help others, but also to, provide for my family. And so that was the draw this year. I had some time to think about it. Podcasting has become more accessible with tools like what we're recording on right now, Riverside. And it was just a leap of faith, a conversation with my wife, of like, okay, if you're going to do that, maybe you do a little bit less travel to speak and consult, and you can do, kind of a hybrid. I said, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's great. I think it's going to be really interesting with, this is just pontification. I want to get your reaction to it, but it's going to be really interesting. You're seeing like Vision Expo is transitioning from a twice a year meeting to a once a year meeting. You go to some states. Actually, I was shocked. I went to Connecticut to do a talk. Chris Swenby, who practices in Connecticut, great guy, asked me a year ago to come give a talk in Connecticut, and I was like, yeah, totally, I'll do it. Well, that stacked up. My point is that Connecticut had a thriving meeting, like a thriving meeting. It was amazing. Then you go to some meetings and you're like, man, what is going on here? Like, people aren't showing up. So that's a whole other, curiosity of like, why has that happened? Part of it, I think about like when I was growing up, I would always go to the state association meeting in Nebraska, and my parents would always bring me. And, it felt that to the origin story for me is like, it felt like a family. It's part of the family. And so a lot of these guys that, I would spend time, like they're older, I would see my dad hanging around, they'd see me grow up and took me under their wings, that sort of thing. That doesn't happen anymore. And I'm to blame as much as anybody. Like, I used to bring all my kids. And then probably 6-7 years ago, it was like, well, dad's traveling all the time. And when dad goes to the meeting, he's talking the whole time. So, then it's like, well, mom's just toting kids around different places and it's fun, but like, it's stressful for me. So we just stopped doing it, which I think is a problem. Like that's a me problem. And so, but I think on the other side of all of this is then you look at your travel. Like travel's not easy. And one of the things I'm looking forward to after this first year of merger with PCS and CodeSafe Plus with the formation of PPP is being very intentional with my travel. Like I only want to travel to certain places, and and I want to, we built iCode, we built the podcast in 2019 mostly so I could deliver messages remotely, and and so there's this balance between like being in person, because people do want that is something that you'll find, Ryan, is that people will still want you to actually like connect, right? That's not through a screen. And then you have to be able to figure out like which connections are serving the goal, right? So that's actually what we've been really intentional about within PPP is like, okay, now that we've combined everything and we haven't gone backwards, well, what are our 2 or 3 like solid things we're going to accomplish so that when you get busy, you're not like, oh, shiny object. Oh, we should do this. Oh, let's do that. Right. It's like, no, does that serve our purpose? And what is our purpose for our clients, right? In PPP, if it serves that purpose, okay, let's do it. If it doesn't, then we got to pass. So I'm hoping that clarity that will happen this next year will allow me to be back in these kind of creative modes where I can think and write as opposed to just like going from this place to this place to this place. So I don't know, kudos for you. Do you have those rocks? Like, do you have that aligned where you're saying from a podcast standpoint, you're going to travel less, but how are you going to know to say no?
There's definitely an art of saying no. I lean on my wife and my faith, and just in general, trying to make sure it makes sense. My kids are, my daughter turns 8 in November. My son's 5. And actually this week I took my daughter on a daddy-daughter date. My son's got a father-son time tonight. And I try to do that quarterly to make sure that I have time with them, because I do travel a lot and I'm back and forth between the offices. But I've learned more about the art of saying no and being extremely intentional whenever possible, but I also do understand and respect and believe in the art of showing up, right? And saying yes when you have to say yes, and being in person to deliver certain messages and to collaborate and connect with others. Like you and I were going to go on our separate day. You're going to go do what you have to do today. I'm going to do what I have to do today. We're just going to click the button. But when you're in person, there's a different level of connection that takes place. So I think this will be a continued topic that we'll face is as the profession continues to evolve from these in-person meetings to maybe less of them that are successful and more collaboration via the internet, via these kind of mediums, that I'm excited to see how it unfolds. I think there's going to have to be a nice balance between the two, but COVID definitely opened that up with everybody having to get online to see people for a specific period of time.
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing this transition for us. Just to give you some of my perspective, it's like when we have a meeting, we want it to be very intentional. We want to actually have outcomes from the meeting, as opposed to like if you want to sit in a classroom and maybe pick up 1 or 2 things, like, wow, that's good, then you could do that virtually. But like you want to get to work and like change your practice. Okay, that's worth me coming to, right?
Agree.
Both as a presenter and as an audience member, right? Like, all right, I'm going to do that. So that's how I've been trying to transition a lot of my physical time is more of like a workshop. Like I can sit here and pontificate about lots of different things, but what I found is that most people won't integrate those things if it's not their process. So what we've really worked on is how do we actually give somebody a process to follow so that they can make their process their own. Because if I'm like, hey, Ryan Corte does this, he's awesome. I don't know if I can really do that because Ryan's awesome and I'm good, but I'm not Ryan, But and so like he has these beliefs and he has these systems. Well, like how do we translate those beliefs and systems to somebody who isn't Ryan Corte, right? Who's really great, but they don't have those same structures in place. And that's what's really fun for me to work on. And that's what is those kinds of opportunities will get me physically to a place. Whereas if you just want me to impart my theories on what's going on, I can do that from here.
Oh, absolutely. And you can do it and you can post it and probably reach more people from your studio and all the different ways that we can get the word out there than we can to a finite group of people that may or may not show up or be listening while they're there. Right.
Well, Dr. Ryan Corte, thanks for coming on. Tell everybody where they can find you. Tell them about your podcast and anything else that you want to know about you.
Yeah, no, if there's anything that your listeners can take away from this, we have a wonderful profession, and individuals like yourself and myself, we're really out there rooting for all of our peers, our colleagues, and trying to raise this profession up. You can follow me on social media. LinkedIn, I'm just under my name, Ryan Corte, but all other forms of social media, it's at Ryan Reflects. And that has a synergy with the practice, right? Reflect Vision Care, which we are hiring in the state of North Carolina. So if you were interested in practicing in North Carolina, reach out. I'd be happy to talk.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.